Charlotte Harbor, Florida, summer of 1888. A tarpon close to 100 pounds is stripping line off Edward von Hofe's reel so fast the drag begins to slip. He built that reel in Brooklyn with his own hands. The fish launches clear of the water, silver flanks flashing, and crashes back hard on its side. Von Hofe braces against the pull, counts the line remaining on the spool, and presses his thumb against the spinning rim. He came to Florida because no shop floor can teach you what a tarpon costs in tackle.
Gently now.
The
Keep it
stories
still.
had reached him in Brooklyn
All
for
right,
years.
steady.
Reels locking,
There, done.
spools
There, thank you.
overrunning, men returning with torn palms. The problem was not the angler's strength or the line's limits, it was the drag. And not one reel maker in America had yet built one capable of holding a fish this size in this kind of water. To understand how von Hofe came to that skiff in Charlotte Harbor, we go back 21 years, to a Brooklyn workshop, to a November morning in 1867, and a young machinist who had just opened his own door. His father, Friedrich von Hofe, had been making reels on Fulton Street since 1857, a German-born craftsman who built every piece as if his reputation were riding on it. It was. The von Hofe name meant something in New York. Edward had grown up at that bench. By his mid-teens, he was already Friedrich's apprentice, learning the grain of nickel-silver
right,
under
sir?
the file, the
Adjust
density
the
of
angle of the
ebonite,
file, boy.
the small
Now, try again.
tolerances
Yes,
that
sir.
separated a serviceable reel from an exceptional one. In 1867, at 21, he opened his own workshop on Fulton Street. Not a retail shop, but a manufacturing floor. Reels built from raw material, machined to tolerance, fitted by hand. No two pieces from a mold. The primary material was German silver, an alloy of nickel, copper, and zinc, hard enough to hold a machined edge and resistant enough for salt air. For the side plates, he chose ebonite, vulcanized hard rubber, dense and black. Every reel that left his bench at 97 Fulton Street was assembled by hand, every screw fitted to specification, every click mechanism individually tuned before the reel was wrapped and sold. Word traveled through the angling world quickly. His brother Julius ran a competing shop nearby, also trained in Friedrich's method, also building reels of genuine quality. The von Hofe family had become, inside a single decade, the first American dynasty of precision tackle making. Edward's reels were among the finest being made in the country, but he knew their limits. He knew the limits of every reel on the market. Somewhere in American waters, there were fish large enough to destroy any of them. If you want to see how Edward von Hofe solved the problem that was breaking reels and injuring anglers across America, here's what I ask. See that subscribe button? It's our exchange, your way of saying this reached you. Hit subscribe if this resonated, drop a like if it moved you, and tell us in the comments what you know about antique American fishing tackle. It helps us share more forgotten stories. Back to Edward and the water that changed everything. The tarpon craze hit American sporting culture in the early 1880s, and it hit hard. Wealthy anglers from New York and Boston were booking trains south to Florida in numbers that filled the Gulf Coast waterfront hotels every spring. A tarpon can reach 6 feet in length and weigh well over 100 pounds. It leaps 10 feet clear of the water when hooked, shakes its armored gill covers, and then runs. Long, fast, and without stopping. The tackle of the 1880s was not built for this. Rods exploded at their ferrules, reels locked, spools overran. Men came back from Florida with smoked thumb pads and palms cut by spinning rims. Von Hofe watched it in person. A reel seizing under load, the spool locking solid, a line parting with a flat crack. He noted every failure the way a machinist notes a tolerance he has not yet solved. Back in Brooklyn, between tarpon seasons, he returned to his bench. Not to the reels that were selling and paying wages, but to the problem he had brought home from Florida. He had to fix the drag. The principle he was working toward was controlled friction. Pressure applied to a turning spool that could be calibrated before a cast. Enough to tire a fish, not so much that the line parted under the first serious run. He tested components through the winter, feeling for the point where controlled friction became lock, where the mechanism stopped serving the angler and started destroying the tackle. Some nights, the lamp on his bench burned until midnight. On September 2, 1879, the United States Patent Office issued his first major patent, an adjustable drag mechanism that applied measured pressure to the reel spool. Modest in form, enormous in what it changed for American fishing. The drag was set with a spanner wrench beneath the handle, turning a collar that fixed the friction before the fight. You could not change it mid-fight, but it was the first reel control an angler had ever held. He built the Universal Special, Model 501, around this system. German silver body, ebonite plates, assembled to tolerances no catalog house could match. It sold to tarpon fishermen and tuna anglers who needed tackle that held underload. But the drag had a limit. Vom Hofe understood better than anyone. It was set before the fish was on. Once a tarpon was airborne and running, you were committed. The fish could change direction, the reel could not. He had felt it himself. The moment in a fight when the fish turns and the tension you set before the cast is suddenly wrong, and nothing stands between you and a broken line but the friction you chose. In January of 1883, a second patent arrived, a click device with an arrow-shaped pawl and paired curved springs that added a secondary layer of braking force. Each piece worked toward the same answer: reel drag, reel control. In July of 1896, a third patent arrived, an automatic drag. He named the reel the Restigouche after the great Atlantic Salmon River on the New Brunswick border, and it became one of the most coveted big-game reels in American angling. He never stopped going to Florida. Every tarpon season, Charlotte Harbor, Boca Grande, the Gulf Coast Flats, he fished alongside the men who bought his reels and watched every fight with the eyes of the man who built the equipment. American big-game fishing was growing faster than the tackle that served it. A tarpon over 100 pounds demanded something different from a trout reel. Vom Hofe was building toward that difference, one patent at a time. He made reels in sizes that had not previously existed. Big-game spools wide and deep enough to hold hundreds of yards of heavy linen line against the sustained run of a fish that outweighed most of his customers. His fly reels, the Peerless and the Perfection, were already considered among the finest in the world by the men who knew such things. But it was his saltwater work, his drag work, where his contribution was becoming permanent. In 1900, Tuna Club member J.A. Ross fought a broadbill swordfish off Catalina Island for 4 hours and 45 minutes on a Vom Hofe Universal Special 9/0 size. The reel held through all of it. That catch ran in the sporting press and attached Vom Hofe's name to the standard of performance serious anglers needed to believe in. Orders came in from men who had never visited Brooklyn and might never go. But the fundamental problem was still there. The drag was still preset, still fixed through the fight. In the winter of 1901, back at the bench on Fulton Street, Edward Vom Hofe finally worked out how to solve it. He called it the internal friction drag. A star wheel mechanism built into the frame allowed the angler to adjust tension in real time, while the spool turned, while the fish ran. He patented it on May 20th, 1902. The reel built around this system was the Universal Star, Model 621. It came in 6 sizes, from 1/0 to 9/0. The largest models required a rod belt just to hold position while a big fish was running. Not the most elegant reel he built, but the most consequential. The star drag principle it carried, refined by Julius and by P. Pfluger in the following years, became the foundation of every modern saltwater reel ever made. Every spinning reel on a saltwater pier today carries some version of that system. Every offshore trolling reel, every tournament tuna outfit, all of it traces back to a bench on Fulton Street, Brooklyn, and a patent filed in 1902. He gave no speeches about this. He wrote no books. Each autumn, he came home from tarpon season, sat down at the bench, and went back to building the next reel. The work required no commentary. The famous names of early American big-game fishing, the men whose catches filled the pages of Forest and Stream, came to his shop on Fulton Street and trusted him with the most important tackle they owned. He outfitted their expeditions. By the early 20th century, the Vom Hofe workshop was making reels of technical complexity unmatched in the American tackle trade, each one still handmade, each one still checked at the bench before it left. He continued the Florida trips until his health declined, every tarpon season, without exception, as he had promised himself on that first morning in Charlotte Harbor. He had outlasted most of the men who doubted his early drag work. The Commander Ross reels, his largest big game models built for deepwater fishing and fish weighing hundreds of pounds, came in sizes up to 16-aught. No equivalent reel existed anywhere in the American or European market. Edward von Hofe died in 1920 at 74 years of age. His sons Edwin and Clarence continued the workshop under the same name, same address, and same construction standards until the company finally closed in the early 1940s. When the workshop closed, the tackle world it helped create looked nothing like the one Edward had entered in 1867. He had not simply made reels. He had built the vocabulary every saltwater reel maker would speak for the next century. The Peerless and the Perfection, his fly reels, built to specifications developed in the 1880s, are still considered among the finest fly reels ever produced by human hands. The machines that made them are gone. The reels remain. A von Hofe reel from 1885 appears at auction today and sells for prices that would have astonished a Brooklyn machinist working by lamplight. The nickel silver still holds its finish. The ebonite is still black. The mechanisms still turn. That is the measure of real precision work, not survival, but function. A von Hofe fly reel from the 1880s will still hold drag on a running salmon today. That is not coincidence. That is craft. When you adjust the drag on a modern saltwater reel, turning that star wheel, feeling the resistance shift, you are using the principle Edward von Hofe patented in a Brooklyn workshop in 1902. You are still feeling it today. He never saw the ocean-going tackle fleets his mechanisms helped build. He died before graphite rods and synthetic lines changed the sport entirely. But the physics he worked out at his bench in Brooklyn still govern every drag system and every reel on the market today. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe. Your support helps us preserve these histories and the men who lived them. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from.